Hello, my name is Seth Ressler. I'm the digital dot connector for Jacobs Media. I help broadcasters with their online strategies. And in this short video tutorial, I am going to show you how to submit your podcast to the iTunes directory so that you can be listed in iTunes. And being listed in iTunes is really, really important. I mean, iTunes is really the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to podcasting. The ratio of podcasts that are listened to in an iOS device versus an Android device, according to Rob Walsh of Libsyn, is about 5 to 1. So if you want people to listen to your podcast and to find your podcast, really it's important that first and foremost you're listed in iTunes. So I'm going to walk you through how to do this. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the RSS feed for your podcast that you get from your podcast host, and in this case that's Libsyn, and you're going to submit that to iTunes after you check it to make sure it's working. Two places you can find these instructions. One, you can find them over at apple.com. And here's the URL right here, and it'll give you all the instructions you need for making sure that your RSS feed is correct, and you can submit it to iTunes. The other place, if you are using Libsyn to host, they have a frequently asked questions as well, and one of the topics is how to submit your show to iTunes. And again, here's the URL right here. So I have already logged into the dashboard of Libsyn. This is the podcast for the 2015 Worldwide Radio Summit. I did a bunch of interviews backstage for All Access. And in another short video, I showed you how to upload the first episode. The one I uploaded was an interview with Jeff Samulian, the CEO and chairman of EMIS. And then I set the show settings over here in another video as well. But before we submit to iTunes, I actually want to go to edit or view existing destinations. And here we've got the RSS feed. This is what we're going to submit to iTunes. But before we do that, we just want to take a look at that RSS feed because we want to make sure that all the information that iTunes needs is there. So you've got to edit that here. And sure enough, we've got some information that it doesn't have yet, so we're going to fill that in. What category do we want this to go in? Well, that's kind of a tricky one. I'm probably going to put it in business because it's about the radio broadcasting business. Other places to put it, maybe technology because it's about radio broadcasting, and maybe about music. It's sort of kind of related to music. That's a little bit of a stretch there. Subtitle and summary and author. Now, these are all things that will show up in the iTunes search, but really when it comes to keywords, the important thing is the title of your podcast and the author. That's what will affect the search. So subtitles, I've already called this the 2015 Worldwide Radio Summit All Access Interviews with Seth Ressler. And I really included the keywords there because people might look up Worldwide Radio Summit, they might look up All Access, and they might look up my name. Maybe we'll call this a series. Let's call it a look at the state of the radio broadcasting industry. Or maybe, you know what, I might even call it with discussions with thought leaders in the radio broadcasting industry. There we go. I like that. Summary. What do we want to put up in the summary? Seth Ressler, the digital dot connector for Jacobs Media and author of the next steps. I'm a terrible typer. Steps. Recorded at the 2015 Worldwide Radio Summit in Hollywood, California. That's a pretty good description. Author, I will say Seth Ressler of All Access. access. Again, those are the things that people may be searching for. This is clean keywords, radio, broadcasting, world wide radio summit. This is not actually that important. This feature has been depreciated on the latest version of iTunes, but we'll include it here anyway. Owner name, that's me. And we'll say Seth at, I got so many email addresses, jacobsmedia.com. Use show images. You could upload a specific image for each show. I'm actually not going to do that. While I do have headshots of all the people I interviewed, I'm not sure if they're the right size and meets the iTunes specifications. So we'll just use the one image that I have for the show. And we save that. Great. Here's my RSS feed. Let's copy that. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to go check this. So we're going to go to feedvalidator.org and type in our feed. That is going to tell me whether this feed is working or not, and give me some tips if there's anything I need to. Great, it's a valid RSS feed. Wonderful, it's working. So now I am going to actually head over to iTunes, which I have open here. Just pull this to the front. And when you're in iTunes, you're probably going to be open to the Music tab and the iTunes Store at the beginning. I want you to click over to the Podcast tab. If you don't see the podcast icon here, you might need to look under the 3 dots to find your podcast. So we're going to go to Podcasts. And again, make sure you're in the iTunes Store in Podcasts. And then you're going to go over to this right column here, and you're going to click Submit a Podcast. And here's how you submit a podcast to the iTunes directory. This is so much easier than it used to be. Back in the day, you used to have to fill out an Excel file and submit it. But I'm going to just continue. It's going to ask me to enter my iTunes, my Apple ID. Great. There it is with all the settings. I don't know, subcategory, careers maybe, sure. And then let's go ahead and submit that. Thank you for submitting the podcast to the iTunes Store. Great. And it's going to take a couple days, usually 3 to 5 days, for something to actually show up. But there it is. I've submitted it, and now we're done. And that's how you submit a podcast to iTunes. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I am Seth, S-E-T-H, @jacobsmedia.com.